Superheroes are awesome. I think we can all admit that. And when a superhero or fictional character becomes so popular, and there's bound to be some reenactments or interpretations of said character. In terms of Superman, you can find countless retellings and alternate versions of him. And the only reason I bring this up is because I feel like I need to remind the Snyder stans watching to understand that just because Henry Cavill's flat as Stan Lee character writing is no longer relevant to this rebooted cinematic universe, that it's not the end of the world. There's no corrupt agenda, there's no malicious intent in James Gunn's actions. He just wants to make great movies and make these characters feel as true to themselves as he can. And also, the DC film universe kinda needed a serious rework anyway. So yeah, the new Superman movie has made people pretty divided on how to feel about it. On one hand, it's an amazing story about legality versus morality, alienation, envy, and corrupt governments. On the other hand, it's a highly ambitious mess where Superman gets his ass handed to him every 5 minutes, featuring Guy Gardner, is what I would say if I was a Snyder stan. But I will say, I can see both sides of the argument, even if I feel more for the former. I can make a whole different video just talking in depth about the craziness behind the sudden change in leadership over the DC cinematic universe, and about James Gunn's work ethic as well as the fan backlash and praise. But Professional Normie is a show all about looking over media I find fascinating and bring more light to something you aren't sure if you want to check out, and try to convince y'all to check them out too, in about 15 minutes or so, more or less. Basically, anytime I make an episode about something, you can guarantee it's because I either like it or love it. So without further ado, I will explain why you should check out this film and why Snyder fans are absolutely mental.
Any of you incel, QAnon, 4chan, Snyder cut motherfuckers want to get on a line now?
The story takes place in an alternate universe separate, but similar to the one we knew before this one. That's what I'm going with, and that's the comfort zone I'm choosing to stay with. Where Superman takes on the only real everlasting battle any powerful superhero goes through, scorn and defamation. Where he got himself intertwined in conflict with the corrupt government of Baravian and its president, Vasil Girkos, and America's interpretation of Superman's character and actions in said conflict. But the main villain of the movie, Lex Luthor, gets permission to unalive Supes and revels in the chance to gain more power and control over the world. You know, usual Lex Luthor hijinks. But that's just the very tip of this iceberg. Those are just the main conflicts that drive this movie's plot forward. There's also the Justice Gang, who help out Superman when needed, Lois and Clark's relationship that feels real, with realistic feelings of strain between these two, and all the people who were inspired by Superman's bravery. Speaking of the Justice Gang, which consists of Guy Gardner, played by Nathan Fillion, who was a member of the Green Lantern Corps like Hal Jordan, Mr. Terrific, played by Eddie Gathegi, he's smart, and Hawkgirl, played by Isabella Merced. Guy serves as the comic relief, snarky old geezer who usually takes the chance to dunk on Superman. Even though bro should have been flamed multiple times for that haircut, he got that Ian Heacock's old smosh cut. Though he does tend to get the job done, so at least he's not an incompetent comic relief. Mr. Terrific is the main smart man of the group. He's the one who actually decided to help Lois find Superman in a pocket universe made by Lex. Bad idea on Lex's part, by the way. But he's also got his funny moments too, and Hawkgirl's here too. And then there's Lois Lane, played by Rachel Brosnan. Lois makes for a great supporting role in all this drama going on in this world. Interviewing Superman, asking the hardest hitting questions, getting the Justice Gang to help out Superman. Woman just really likes to get to the point. And I think it's worth noting how Lois is not at all a damsel in distress. Quite the opposite. She's smart, she's witty, and deals with no BS when it comes to her worker man. Then there's Lex Luthor, played by Nicholas Hoult, who I might add also played Renfield in 2023's Renfield, starring Nicolas Cage as Dracula. Severely underrated movie, in my opinion. I wasn't really sure how to feel about Nicholas as Lex Luthor, considering when I first saw him in the trailer, I thought he looked like a knob, not a very intimidating villain. However, when I actually watched his performance, I realized he was perfect for what they were going for. This isn't just another suave, smooth-talking businessman like how Lex is usually depicted. In this movie, he's an envious nerd who despises Superman so much He puts tons of his own money and resources to imprison him and eventually try to unalive him. It's not exactly the same Lex most of us are used to, but rather a power-hungry dweeb nerd who wishes to rule the world. But Nicholas acts with such conviction and childish manipulation to get his way, making you wonder how he even got into power in the first place. But then you remember, even before he had the government's support, he is a narcissistic genius who's aware of his own motives and owns the materials it takes to take down Superman for good, even creating his own pocket universe to imprison his enemies or anyone who double-crosses him, or most likely just because he wanted to in this situation. Also, the fact that Lex has a pocket universe, base of operations, where he has a bunch of monkeys creating fake hate tweets constantly about Superman is such a Lex thing to do that it just makes me laugh every time. And now we've made it to the main star of the movie, Superman, played by David Cornsweet, which, by the way, I really love that last name. Reminds me of how I get after Thanksgiving dinners. But so, Superman is probably by far the most interesting part of this movie, solely because most normal audiences just weren't ready for this depiction of the character. Because in this one, Superman is not a perfect being. He makes mistakes, he keeps getting himself into trouble, but despite all of that, he keeps going and keeps trying to fight the good fight. Superman could have taken over the Earth and made it his own, but he didn't. Instead, he stuck to his good fortune and his caring and loving Earth family and friends. Even if you haven't seen the movie yet, you've definitely seen this part go around, where Superman confesses how he really feels and what he really wants out of this life. And it really is a beautiful moment. Though there are some noteworthy changes to his character I wanted to point out. Much like Lois, he's pretty direct and to the point, and his overall attitude kinda gives off the vibe of a guy who's just been through enough and just wants people to see him for who he really is, and do what he thinks is right. And even though Superman doesn't kill, he probably doesn't mind catching a body in this film.
That's technically our ally and then threatened to murder their head of state.
First of all,
I believe David Cornsweet gives a great performance in this iteration of Superman, where he just wants to do what's right and not want to let anyone get hurt. But now let's move on to some key points of interest with the film that I've seen most audience members point out. Superman gets beat up a lot in this movie, which is one of the main complaints or points I hear people talking about. And truly, I do get how frustrating that can be. However, I have a few ideas as to why he does. This could just be an early stage Superman where he's still trying to get used to his strength, but I'm not too sure about that one, because the movie claims Superman never lost a fight until his fight with Ultraman and Lex's other goons. So my personal belief is that if Superman fights someone who is hired by or made by Lex Luthor, then he's just bound to get a run for his money. Because Lex knows all about Superman and his weaknesses, and even if he doesn't have kryptonite anymore, he's found other conventional means to possibly unalive him. However, this doesn't really answer why Superman was having such issues with a pool of blocks dragging him towards a black hole.
And that anti-proton river will tear us apart in seconds. We cannot go in ourselves.
Oh, my bad. Sorry, I didn't pay attention real well, okay? I'm trying to get things done here. I've been really busy for the past few days. And another reason could be due to a similar event in comic book history, where we started with the pre-crisis Superman, Cavill's Superman, who basically was an unmatched god who sneezed planets away and could use any superpower he needed. But once the post-crisis era hit, they cemented all the base abilities Superman had and nerfed him significantly, not to the point where he couldn't fight, but just to give the villains a slight fighting chance, making it more compelling and interesting to watch these fight scenes and tense moments. And I'm specifically thinking about the New 52 era of superheroes that perfectly defines what I'm talking about, and is possibly what inspired Cavill's Superman in terms of looks and base powers. So while Superman's taking on foes that Cavill's Superman would probably wipe the floor with, including Lex Luthor for shits and giggles, I honestly believe this Superman is way more endearing and actually made me want to cheer him on, to keep going, to keep fighting, to figure it out. Another key point of interest is where exactly this film takes place in the like mainline DC cinematic universe timeline. And I'll just be straight with you, it is hella confusing to me too. But if I really had to explain what's going on before you see this film, I'd say this film is a hard, soft reset of the DCEU in James Gunn's image. How that sounds is completely up to your interpretation, but if I had to give my own personal opinion, I think it's a great choice to allow James Gunn to just go crazy, making these amusing, fun to watch superhero flicks and shows. Though they do be doing some crazy shit in Peacemaker Season 2. But speaking of, here he is in this movie being interviewed by Steve YouTube. That's 2 Smosh references in one video. And I also believe James Gunn has the best intentions when it comes to making these sorts of films, making sure it's the best thing he can make. And I'm not saying people like Zack or anyone who came before Gunn didn't care about the DCEU, but the whole thing just kind of felt rushed, like they wanted to be just like the MCU. Meanwhile, James Gunn really took his time making this movie, while also coming out with a new DC animated show before the film, and Peacemaker Season 2, all being made basically at the same time. Bro is a workaholic, and it's kinda scary if I'm being honest. Let's move on to some more lighthearted fun facts, shall we? Crypto, the superdog, is depicted as being Kara Zor-El, aka Supergirl's dog, played by Millie Alcock, which is an odd but cool switch up in my opinion. And in this movie, she's also revealed to be a possible habitual drunk, or at least a very gnarly party animal, considering how crazy Crypto gets in this movie. Kinda reminds me of my dog, really. But it's also kind of a sad idea, considering Kara actually remembers what happened on Krypton, while Clark only knows about it through his bio parents' message to him. Superman's new logo is based on his logo from the Kingdom Come comic series, which I only remember because the artist who drew the cover for the comics made it look like these characters were actually getting their picture taken. And it's crazy good details in it. And it's a logo also used in that one Superman and Lois romance anime, but I think the newer one looks better. Though of course I will always much prefer the logo from before that's been used for damn near a century, but I get it, I guess. Corporate really likes minimalist, sleek designs nowadays. I do honestly kind of like it though. I think it's the yellow outer edge that's keeping the design looking less flat, in my opinion. Because if it was just that design with nothing else on it, I think it would have sucked. But I think it's fine. I did also want to give a quick shout out to one of the voice actors in this movie. His name is Alan Tudyk. He's been in several pieces of DC media in the past. He plays Superman's robot pal in this, but he also played Dr. Phosphorus in Creature Commandos. Half the characters in the Harley Quinn show, he's played Green Arrow at least 3 times. He's voiced Alfred Pennyworth in the Batman audio adventures, The Flash, and even Superman himself in the Justice League War animated movie. I just thought I would give him a quick shout out because I didn't know he was such a DC homeboy. Much love to him. Honestly, if we were to ignore this film being a reboot, this is pretty good. But seriously, I truly believe that this film makes for a great, definitive comic book experience on film. The bombastic characters, acting, performances, and action, especially the extensive cast of side characters like Mr. Terrific, Metamorpho, and of course the wonderful Guy Gardner. He's such a punk. I always appreciate it when he shows up in different things, not to mention all the heartfelt moments with Superman and the people in Metropolis. And even though this film had quite the rocky start and had to do a lot of trust farming with the DC community, I truly hope people come to believe in James Gunn's vision for the future of DC's film and TV. And just a reminder, Gunn's only real objective is to work on the mainline DC film TV verse, like Superman and Peacemaker and whatever else comes along there. So anything else that happens, like the Batman 2 or some other DC projects, are completely separate from what he's doing, which I think is a great thing. I think there needs to be more people doing that with their superhero properties. Some of the best stuff comes from like alternate content away from the mainline content that makes all the money. So yeah, I hope I opened some of y'all's minds to this new way of the future for DC. And I know it ain't no Batman Beyond film, but it's a very important new beginning for the DC cinematic universe. And I just can't wait to see what else comes from it. I don't expect many people to agree with me, but I'm just really hoping I didn't piss off any Snyder stans. Seriously, those guys are scarier than Taylor Swift stans. But anyway, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day and a good rest of your night. But yeah, that's about it. I'll see you guys in the next episode.